and recording.
Good. I think somehow the word got out that I was going to be naughty and have all of the CLS staff hide their faces because we weren't seeing everybody else's faces. And look, and here you all are, all somehow new to show us the faces. It actually is really, really nice to be able to see you. I think it somehow is reassuring to me. We have, my goodness, 3 pages worth of people today, and we
43.
still have more people coming on.
So I tried something different today. I opened up the waiting room. So you probably noticed that when you clicked the link, you went in a waiting room first, and then I approved letting you in. I think we're going to practice doing that the next few meetings, just so you get used to it, because we will have the waiting room active for the May 20th meeting. So I thought this would be a good way just to kind of get used to it. If your name doesn't match who you actually are, you can open up the participants button. It's on your toolbar on the bottom of your Zoom window, and then hover over your name, and there's an option to rename yourself. Please rename you so we can get you counted for, so you get credit for attending this meeting.
And who is Trey Grismore? Where are you from?
Is that related to Kelly?
I'll bet it is. I'll bet that's it. Well, good. I think we know Crystal Obermeyer is, where is she from? Is she from Jewel?
Hello, I'm from Russell.
From Russell. Oh, okay, now I know. Diane is right. This is better than the Brady Bunch. So if you can't see lots of faces, if you kind of scroll up, and you'll find speaker view, or you'll find grid. And if you want to see everybody's face, so you're getting the whole Brady Bunch experience, you choose grid. It's just nice, so nice to see everybody's faces. And how many people do we have? 45. Oh my goodness. We are truly getting good practice for the annual business meeting. At the business meeting, we'll probably be about double this size. So I'm anticipating that because we're practicing so much, it's just going to be a piece of cake. At some point during these meetings, we'll use reactions, and we'll do a poll and other things so we can practice those features when we get up to the business meeting. As of right now, everything is ready to go, except the budget. I think Steve has one more thing to do on that, for the packets for the annual business meeting in May. And then tomorrow, I think Miss Peggy is gonna go and get those printed. I reminded her to count on more than one day, because inevitably when we start running a big print job like that, OPI has to come and service the printer. Always happens. And then those are going to be in the mail this week. Every library voting representative is going to get one. Every county appointee, every executive committee member will get one, and librarians too. Peggy, did I get that right? Oops, unmute. You're on mute, honey.
I think that's correct.
There it is. Okay, she thinks that's correct. I'm also going to have Steve, as soon as we've got everything ready, I'll either have Steve or Peggy run it as a PDF. It'll be really big. We will put it up on the website, and you can go and click on that link. We'll send the link out to you. We're not going to attach the PDF because it's really going to attack some people's internet at home, and it would take forever and ever and ever to download. So we'll send out the link, and you can go and look at it there as well. But that stuff is on its way and ready to go. We had a, thank you, Michael. We had our CCALS Executive Board meeting last week, and I asked them to please consider adding money for extra content for Sunflower eLibrary and for Hoopla, and they approved $20,000 worth of content purchase for Sunflower eLibrary. I have already purchased that. I am good at spending money. And the hoopla, I ask for it to be discretionary. Starting today, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start monitoring every library, and those libraries that are getting close to using up their money, we're going to be able to put extra money into those libraries. So it really is going to be dependent on local use, is I guess the easiest way to say that. I want to be sure we have three, I think, on here. 3 executive board members, and I want to thank you for that consideration, especially. Oh, hello, Liz. What else came out of that? I ran the budget past the executive board, and one of the things that is going to happen is that we're reducing some line items at CKLS, and then internally we also have, and that's most of the departments, internally we also have a bare bones, when things go all to heck, amount of money we can function by. And that's just for us just to know. I think it's always good. We always recommend that librarians have a couple of things, and it's what's your bare minimum level of financing that you can function with, and what's your wish list in case money just drops in your lap. So we've got that. Hey, if any time you've got a question, either just go ahead and type it in the chat or unmute your mic and go ahead and
on the
ask.
table.
I don't really have an agenda for this meeting. I don't really have a lot. I've been attending board meetings, learning a lot about your libraries and your governance. Does anybody have questions for me? No?
Don't forget, you might be on mute.
We have 4 board members on. Oh, we have Karen and Sherry and Jessica and Melissa. We have 4 board members on. That's right. I had to count in my head. We do have one person who got nominated to go on the executive board, and you'll see that information in their packet. This person, I think, would be just a stellar addition as well. Okay.
Hello, Gail. Can you hear me?
I can. Hello, Cheryl.
Good. I have been wondering about the plexiglass situation around our desks. I've had a carpenter in to kind of give me an estimate and such like. Are we allowed to have any pass-through, or should it surround our desk and we just hand then at the end of the counter maybe, or how should we handle that? You know, passing paperwork and such like. Should we have any holes cut in at the desk level to
Well,
slide?
I think if you had them cut in at the very desk level, it might be okay. But given the size of books and how it's so diverse, you know, you could have an audiobook that is very, very thick. It's like 4 inches thick, or you could have a children's book that is 19 inches wide. I don't know if you could be ready for every single incident. Diane, you're raising your hand. You're just going to have to talk. I have 3 pages of people. And
that's
unmute
right.
yourself.
Sorry. Yes, there's that. Our post office has, and I don't know if a lot of your libraries aren't going to be able to do this, but their window raises from the bottom so they can adjust it. But for something really large, they can actually remove the whole piece of plexiglass.
And in Great Bend, they just got sheets of plastic hanging from the ceiling. So I think it's really gonna depend. I don't think you can do it wrong, Cheryl. I think you just kind of need to figure out what you've got available to you. And Rachel says she's been looking at plexiglass. Her circ desk is very large. She doesn't think they can cover it all with plastic. They'd feel closed in. She can find it in hardware stores under acrylic sheets. And if they drill some holes in the top and suspend it from the ceiling, that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing in Great Bend, except we can't drill in our ceiling because it has asbestos, but we do have a fancy, pretty lighting rig that we can hook things to if we need to tap into that and make it more functional instead of just pretty. It just really is going to all depend, I think. This morning, I read about New Zealand, of all places. New Zealand very early shut their country down, and they've had under 500 positives and under 50 deaths. And they're at the stage now where they're starting to cut back on restrictions and open things up. They are allowing people to go back to work with social distancing. They do request that only those most important jobs go, but they're not clearly laying out what they consider to be new jobs. And so that'll be an interesting thing to watch, to see how they open up again. Their schools are opening up as well. They're on a different system than we are. Different season. It's not coming into summer for them. And they're actually keeping their middle schoolers and high schoolers home because by law, they're allowed to be home by age, and they're bringing the little ones back to school. So as we watch other countries open up, we might get some ideas about how that's going to work and what that's going to look like. Amy says, for libraries that already have plastic or plexiglass installed already, would you be willing to send out a picture so some of us can get a visual of what it looks like? And how to install plastic sheeting if you have a drop ceiling? I would probably, Amy, use binder clips, actually. There's no need to go high tech with that. If you've got the drop ceiling with the metal grid, binder clips are going to be your best way to do that, I think. It's going to have to be on a library by library basis to see, what options are there.
This is Patty. When you think about your spaces, because everybody has a different situation, but when you have been out, if you've been to, Walmart or Dollar General, there's basically what we would think of as an old-fashioned sneeze guard that's just up over the cash register itself, but they're still bagging everything on one side and still pulling items off of the conveyor off the other side. And yes, you're trying to build that space between, but you also have to think of how it works. So like in Plainville, the best situation might actually be to move to the end of the counter to pass those materials off, because that's the section of the counter that you would keep cleaning. And that might be the best situation. And so you're going to have to look at what it is. And if you need somebody to say, hey, what would you do? Any of us are happy to do that, because we've been in your libraries, and we kind of have an idea of what we might do. And then in terms of the plastic sheeting, our post office right off the bat put up all the sheeting, and they did put up some guards over the main pass-throughs on the counter, but there is the space where the employee reaches around the plastic to hand you your stamps or to take your box in. But they stay behind that plastic piece while they're actually doing their work to give that extra level of safety. And then the other thing that you're thinking about is your people lining up. So say at Hoisington, you only have so much room to hit the door, so you can't line up in a straight line from the door. You have to line up down the counter, say towards the children's side. So you might be thinking about those things, where you'd put those tape marks on the floor or on the front of your counter. So you're looking at a couple different things.
And it will look different in every single library for sure. Oh, hello, Rachel. It's nice to see you. I think we're just going to be saying it again and again, is there are a lot of things that are going to really depend on your library and your library layout. what resources you can get. If your budget doesn't allow for plexiglass, you're going to use acrylic sheets, and you're going to do what you have to do. I mean, if you have to, you can always nail them into the ceiling with a 2x4. It's not going to be pretty, but it's going to get the job done. And I think that's the most important part. Now that the CDC has said it is a good idea for us to wear masks out in public, you may find out if any of your staff members or your board can sew and lay in a good supply of home sewn masks. Mr. Steve, have you been printing? Can you unmute yourself and tell us about it, please? Well, we can't hear you.
There you go, Steve.
We can't hear you. Why don't you type in the chat? Doggone it. Amy wants to know if any library has amended their patron policy for the pandemic, and if so, what does it look like? What changes should we be adding or amending to it? I like to think that a patron policy is sort of an enduring thing that's good for more than just one circumstance. I don't make plans to have our board revisit our patron policy and amend it or make any changes to it, because we've got that pandemic plan, and because when it's time for us to open, we're going to turn it into a pandemic recovery plan and send that out with the public. We're going to put it on media, and we're going to have a copy taped to the door so that our patrons know. What we're looking at with pandemic recovery is, it is a little bit of behavior, but it's really a lot like, going to be more like herding cats. And the policy is more behavioral. It should address those sorts of instances that are going to apply still. If you have someone who is acting badly, your patron policy is still going to be in effect. I think what's really going to make a difference is when you reopen, you're going to have to make sure that you get that word out about what that reopening looks like to every single source of information in your community. It's real important to do. I think about the 1st of May at Great Bend Public Library, we are going to kind of shore up our reopening. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. It won't have dates yet attached to it, of course, but it will have ideas, and we are going to do a phased reopening. My board last Monday felt that that was a very good idea. They also think I'm very optimistic to think that we'll be back in business in June. So there is that. Yes, we need that information. Go ahead.
Would you mind sharing your pandemic plan?
It's the one that I had at the very, very beginning when
Okay.
Do you have that, Cheryl, or shall I send it again?
We can send it out again.
I will
Yeah.
write that down so I don't.
We'll send it out again in an email so you can get it.
Okay.
Okay. I've tried to gather everything.
There was a lot of information at first.
And so appreciated.
Well, thank you.
So Steve did write in the chat while Gail's making her note. He says that it takes about 5 hours to print, but they are solid. These are the face masks that you can print. Thingiverse, which is where you get the blueprints for your 3D prints, has since pulled the design from their site along with the PPE headgear.
Ah,
yeah.
But you still have it. That sounds about right.
So the next question is, what if your library, what if your library has yet to vote or officially go with a pandemic plan? Our board hasn't met yet.
I think you're meeting this week, aren't you, Amy? I know I've got you on my calendar. I think Thursday?
She's nodding yes.
Yes? Okay. So that is when they're going to meet. You might want to roll it past them and say that you realize that this would be a good thing to have in place. because they are talking about reinfections, and you want to do everything that you can as quickly as possible to keep your community safe. And that might be the time to, put it in their packet and have them look at it. Under normal circumstances, I don't recommend that a board make a decision until the third meeting. The first meeting, you propose it to them. The second meeting, there's discussion. In the third meeting, there is a vote. In this instance, you might send it out in their packets now for discussion and action is what I would call it on the agenda. And that way, then the board should understand that this is something that they're gonna need to take action on this week. Hopefully they will read it and go through. There's nothing really controversial in there for sure. Karen and Melissa, I will send out that. It's a pandemic plan. It's not a policy. I will send that out to everybody. For libraries that never had one, what is the outline for one so we can amend it to our individual libraries? I will send it out. It's pretty basic. It's almost like a quick down and dirty disaster plan, 1 page. What is everyone thinking for when we are reopening with the state opening on May 3rd and courier service starting in May? My board said it is when I feel comfortable. Laura, I sat in on that board meeting and your board is right. It is when you feel comfortable. I serve on the courier policy committee across the state, and the May 3rd day, or it's the Monday, is a very soft, squishy, mushy date. That is not a hard date, and that is not carved in stone. We are talking about reestablishing the courier when all libraries in Kansas are open. I think it's going to be a long time before that happens. Steve, the state settled on May 3rd. The state payroll works in 2-week increments. She is extending things 2 weeks at a time because of it ties in with the payroll. Today, I don't think we're going to be ready to open on the 3rd, and I think it's going to be extended again, but we will say when that happens. And so in our employee policy, and this is something that I know not a lot of libraries have, but this is, to me, the most important policy. In our employee policy, it says that when the school closes for weather or other causes, and we left it vague on purpose, the library will also close. And that was key to our pandemic plan, because I knew right away that when they closed school for the year, I was closing the library until summer library program. School summer vacation started up. I knew also that it just wasn't going to be safe. I have friends who live all over the world and saw how this was playing out elsewhere and just knew it was not going to be changing very quickly. So back to the courier. That May date is a very, very soft, squishy, mushy date. It is not hard at all. However, at the executive board meeting last week, I gave them a proposal and they were in agreement with it. And that was that if CKLS libraries were open before the rest of the libraries in the state, and we felt it was safe, we will run a courier service ourselves in between CKLS libraries a couple of times a week so that we can start resource sharing back and forth with each other. And yes, that would include Salina and Hayes and other libraries that are not on Pathfinder Central. We are just going to stay within our 16, 17 CKLS county region because it's my understanding that when they open this up, they're thinking they'll be able to open it up county by county. And so we'll all need to be safe and back to work. But that's what we're looking at. And we're also looking at making that a no touch. Somehow we'll get it figured out. I've got a couple of people who are champing at the bit. They're sick and tired of being home and they like to drive. So there we go. So I know I'm going to have volunteers for that. But that is, other than giving you information and spending more money on digital content, there's not a lot that physically we can do for you. We can be reassuring and we can be helpful. But to me, having the opportunity to provide this personalized courier service is something tangible. And that's something that we will rapidly deploy. Okay, I've gotten way behind.
I'll read the next one for you, Gail. Is it safe to assume individual libraries should not be opening until we have EPA recommended disinfecting supplies?
Yes, and the proper personal protective equipment. You've got to have those disposable nitrile gloves, and while they exist, they're expensive and hard to get a hold of. I am looking at alternate sources for those things, and if I can find them, I am going to buy the box of 500 gloves for every library and a gallon of disinfectant if I can find them. So if you get a lead on them, you let me know. But I would buy one gallon and one box for every library. For the small libraries, it'll last you forever. For the big libraries, it's going to get you started.
Steve says, I like the phased opening idea. I think limited hours plus limited exposure.
Yes, Steve, did you happen to see that phased reopening document that we rolled out? It's
You can send that out again too.
Yeah, send that out again, Steve. It kind of lays it out. You know, the first step is go in and do this, and then you do that. And you're like 3 and 4 steps in until you open up to the public. And your last step is things are back to normal. And I think we realize it's going to take a long time to get there.
I think Amy has a, what is the thought of if the deadline gets extended, that librarians can get back in the building more than 1 day a week to check water systems, etc., to do work?
Well, Amy, my recommendation of going in once a week to flush toilets, do sinks, check on things, it's just a recommendation. Right now, see, I'm confused, and let me find Jessica's face because you were there. So Jessica, I saw that you watched and commented on the governor's last update last week, and she mentioned libraries. I only heard her mention libraries, but I can't find anything in print. Have you been able to find anything?
No, I haven't found anything in print. And I was kind of disappointed because she mentioned it, and that was the first time I've heard libraries individually mentioned. But I've just kind of been waiting to see if something comes out, like at least like when are libraries going to be the ones to start back up? Are we early in the process? Are we late in the process? You know, I'm really eager to see what our recommendations are going to be.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything, but we did get a mention, and so we're on the radar. The governor's legal team prepares the executive orders, and we, meaning me and the state librarian and the other system directors, have been, I'll say, lobbying to get libraries on the radar. And so this was the first mention, so I consider that a positive, and we'll go from there and see where we are.
Andy does state that the guidelines for 14 days of no growth in cases or lowering of cases averaged over 14 days. So that's kind of a way to see, when you start to see that trend, then we'll know that we're getting to the end of it.
Right. Bleach is, Karen, bleach is on the CDC list, but I didn't see it on the EPA list. And I don't know if it is a recommendation for home cleaning or for facility cleaning. And that is one of the problems, is that there's a lot of information out there that contradicts itself.
Gail,
Sure.
that list that you sent us, that link to that EPA list that you could find the things on that said that these were compatible, that had like 25 pages. I found it by arranging them by active ingredients. Okay. And it was clear back in through, multiple pages back through.
Yep.
So, and I got that from that site you sent out.
And was that, so the thing with bleach is that generic bleaches are different, and they're different by brand name. So I'll have to go and dig through there and see if they recommend a brand name.
It's things like the color guard stuff, the splash guard, some of those specialty things they say are not good. The ingredients in them, but just plain bleach.
My
Bleach is what they used to clean Germany after the war. So it's pretty good. Diane?
This is Diane, sorry. In my brother's business, he has to use 6% bleach. And I believe Clorox is one of the ones that does do 6%. And it does have to be mixed every 24 hours because it does break down after you mix it with water. And the stuff that
you the exact proportions.
Yes, and the other thing is you have to keep it wet. Spraying it on, wiping it off doesn't work. You have to leave it wet.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that when it gets closer to us opening, we're gonna be able to put together a document for you that's kind of like a procedure about cleaning. We'll see how it is. Let's see.
I do have a question. One of you lovely librarians mentioned the post office having a section that's lit up for larger items, or the bank. Would you be able to get a picture of that setup and share that with the group?
Yes, please. Take a picture of the ceiling, you know, look like you're casing the joint and take a picture.
They're going to be so paranoid I'll probably be arrested.
Well, when Shane and I go in full masks and sunglasses, looks like we're getting ready to rob them. Denise said you may want to check your building more frequently than once a week. They had a gas leak that was caught in time because they have someone entering the building daily. And Denise, I think you're taking turns, but for those libraries with just one person, that may be what you consider.
Yes, we are taking turns, but if you have only one person, it probably needs to be that person every day, I guess. Anyway, we're glad we caught the leak.
Yeah. Yes. Ron Brubaker's been doing once or twice a week inspection to take care of the mail and book drop items. Thank you for your bleach information. Joanna, I'm going to go and double check on that bleach. I trust Karen's research skills, and I'm going to find it in print so I can share it out with you. Amy, the CDC links to the EPA list. Clorox and Lysol seem to be the brand names, and there's a certain percentage of a particular ingredient that there needs to be. And yes, Steve, Virex, it's hard to find now. If you have a source other than the one that you sent us to, let me know because I will buy it for everybody.
And to also notice, yeah.
For us.
And also notice that the splashless bleach is not the germ killing bleach. So so if you have that splashless bleach, which is really hard to say, if you have that, it will not be killing the viruses.
So what is splashless bleach?
I believe it's for laundry. It's to help.
Is it like a gel?
I don't know.
I don't know. We are very old fashioned at our house. And following the guidelines on the product, you have to allow for drying time. This would be a consideration of how you set up your checkout system, like they said before, where you've got one end of the counter is where people return things, and then it goes through the cleaning process before it ever gets to be reshelved. And the other end of the counter is where things are going out. And of course, if you just have a desk, like Ramey and Sylvan Grove, you're going to have to use your floor space and kind of figure it out.
Oh, Joanna says splashless is thicker and doesn't glub out of the jug, so it doesn't splash.
Very interesting. Now I'm going to have to go and look at that. We've got quite a conversation going on. Any more questions?
What is the best practice to deal with books coming into the drop?
It's changing day to day. Melissa, it's confusing. It's really confusing. Some libraries have not had the option of closing their book drop. And some have closed right away and have recommended that patrons keep the drop. Like Ramey and Joanna, they aren't able to close their drop. And so what Joanna's been going in and doing is putting all the books from one day in one physical area, and then she knows that 3 days later, those books are safe for her to handle because the virus will have been killed on paper and plastic. Over the weekend, I sent something out from, I think it was Kansas Department of Health. They have dates on things when virus is live longer than I've seen. And I haven't been able to find out where they got that information, but I would really like a source on that. Ron is disinfecting the covers, quarantining for 96 hours, and then he has bagged them after disinfecting, bags inside and out.
And then there's
Yes.
a question. Oh, go ahead.
Why not use your outside book drop for return items? Don't come into the building after you've opened upon a limited basis. And we're going to be looking at all different kinds of things like that, Denise. Some libraries don't really have a book drop. Steve says we dump our drop, lay the books on a table, hose them down with Virex, and let them set for a week. And I kind of think that's what it's going to look like. Steve?
Gail, this is Joanna.
Yes, ma'am.
I have kind of been, I'm going on the longer side of caution. Now I'm putting them on the floor in areas, and I'm just waiting a week. When a week's up, then I worry about checking them in or moving them to a different spot. And I have, right now I got about six sections on the floor. So I know that's, when I get to back to the beginning, it's been a week.
Yes. I'm going to show you something exciting here. It's just in the works. Oh, if somebody can let me share my screen, I'd be glad to do that.
I think you should be able to share screen. You should be able to.
It's telling me the host has disabled it.
Okay, I'll make you a co-host then. I'll try it.
Okay. Now I can. Okay, good. Just a minute. Let me get this rolling. Oh, I just need to share my desktop. That's all I need to do. Desktop share. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna let you watch this video with me.
Did you share with sound?
Yep. I don't know, but let me see if I can make it
Turn
louder.
it up. I can hear it a little bit. Yep.
Discovery system that integrates your e-content and other third-party
Can you guys hear it now?
Yes.
Okay.
providers, giving your patrons comprehensive access to all your materials in one place.
This is 12 minutes long.
So let's take a tour. Askman can be customized to match your look and feel of your library, incorporate your logo, and other things that tie in your library's look. You can highlight certain lists or New York Times bestseller lists on your front page. There's a New York Times bestseller API that brings the lists automatically into your library system. So now when your user clicks on one of those lists, they'll be able to see the titles that are available in your system. From the home page, your user can also see a list that your library decides to highlight. In our case, you can see titles for new fiction and others just by scrolling down the page. Your user has the option of looking at either covers or in a grid. Now let's talk a little bit about search in Aspen Discovery. When your user does a search, it will bring back the most relevant results in the system. You'll notice here that it also provides a list of titles that match in the system, so they can select from that list as well. When the results come back, you'll have your facets over here on the left-hand side. When you're setting up your facets, you have between 30 and 40 facets that your users can choose from. If I'm looking for e-content, you'll notice that I can just select that, it will expand, and then allow me, of course, to drill down by Overdrive or Cloud Library. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see that the user also has the option to look at visuals. So they could hit that ebook, and then it will bring back options for just ebooks in the system. Of course, they can search the entire collection, what's available now, and then also what's available online. As I scroll through, you'll be able to see the options for those particular titles. So now I can see if it's available online for a different provider, either Cloud Library, Overdrive, Hoopla, recorded books, or other formats. As I scroll through, again, we can see additional information about those titles. Your user will be presented with options to look at more information, which will take them into a detailed view of the record. Here you'll be able to see things like ratings, additional information like language, accelerated reader, and formats. As I scroll down, the user will be able to see the description of that particular title, more like this, which is the recommendations from Aspen Discovery for similar titles. And then, of course, down below, they'll be able to see things like the subjects, more details, similar titles from Novelist. So if your library is a Novelist Select subscriber, you'll be able to see the integration. Along with other authors from Novelist, you can tie in reviews from Goodreads, and then, of course, a staff view below, which would give you mark information. Now, as I scroll up, let's do another search. Now let's maybe look for some series information. So if I was looking for the Outlier trilogy, this will bring back a list of results that match my search. Here you'll be able to see a quick look at each one of those records. And if I know I'm looking for the Outliers trilogy, I can click on that series information. That will then take me back where I can see those 3 matches for the titles in that series. And of course, if I click on one of those titles again, it will take me in where I can see items also in this series. Let's talk about spelling. You know, how often some of our users will come in, search in the system, whether they're looking for a title and they type too fast, or they're just not sure of how something is spelled in the system. Aspen will fix the spelling error for them and back a list of results. So here you can see I spelled Chronicles with an A rather with an E. Aspen fixes it for me and shows the results for Chronicles of Narnia. You'll notice right below, though, it does give them that option of what they did search for with the incorrect spelling. Now, as I scroll through, I can see those options for the particular title that I'm looking for. Now let's log into the system. When the user is prompted to log in, this allows them to enter in either their password or username, followed with their password or PIN. Once they are logged into the system, it will take them into their account information where they can see titles that they have physically checked out, any if they had them checked out with RB Digital or Cloud Library as well. So when I click on those checked out titles, I'll be able to see the items that I have checked out in the library, the due date, and any additional information. Seeing these stars around both the title and again here in our items that are checked out. This allows the user to rate the particular item that they've read. Once it's rated in the system, Aspen will start providing recommendations based on reviews and ratings in the system. It has the choice to look at reading history. Of course, this is all dependent on what is set up in your system. If you anonymize or you allow the user to choose, they can, of course, stop recording the reading history if they have that option. Then that will show them no reading history. And if it is turned on, then of course they can choose to record their reading history, which will give them just a look at what they've checked out in the system. Under their fines and messages, they'll be able to see anything that they owe. Right now, I owe a total of 25 cents. The ability to integrate PayPal credit, credit card. So the user can click right away and go into that particular payment option and make a payment to the library. Materials requests. This ties into purchase suggestions that your user has made in the system. If you allow purchase suggestions, the user can see when the item was suggested and when it's available. They can also submit a new material request by clicking on the link, and that will give them a form that allows them to fill it out. I'm going to jump back to my account and look at some of the other options that we have. Here, you'll also see titles that you've rated. So if you do use the rating system, you can see those items here that have been rated and what you've rated them. Then you now have something called recommended for you. This will take the ratings that I have made in the system and give me recommendations based on those. So now your users have something new to check out. And of course, then the last things we have here are account settings. And these, of course, are set up so your user can come in and see their preferences, things where they may want to pick up holds in the system, contact information such as their emails and phone numbers, their messaging settings, what messages they will receive in the system, how would they like to receive them, SMS, email, and then linked accounts. This is an option that your library can choose to turn on or off, but this allows you to link to an account. So perhaps it's your partner or a guardian or your child. And this will appear and you'll be able to view checkouts and holds in the main account. Now, one thing we can go into a little detail about is holds. When your user places a hold in the system, they'll be able to come in and view all of the holds, whether they're ready for pickup or anything that is pending in the system. So here you can see it will show them right away the position that they're in, and then if there's any above one, so I can see there's one other person ahead of me on this one, they'll be able to see that information in the system. They'll also be able to see it and have a breakdown for physical material. If they have any holds on their RB Digital or Cloud Library, they'll be able to see that information as well. They can cancel holds or freeze holds or suspend.
I just wanted to give you, let me go back and be done there, a preview. Let me turn my volume down now, it's way high. I just wanted to give you a preview of what that is going to look like. That is coming to our catalog this year. I just signed the paperwork for that today. It is, what it is it is, we still have Koha and Bywater. It is like a skin that overlays and it creates a patron experience that is very close to Amazon. It just is a much more user-friendly skin, and I think that our patrons are really going to like it. I like that it is integrated with all of our digital content, so they only have one place they have to go. I've been told that if you're logged in, like so with Sunflowery Library, if you've selected your library and you're logged in, it just automatically checks out to you. It just happens. It's very quick. And so then what also will happen is that catalog will integrate into Pathfinder, and so your patrons will be able to see that, and so they only really need to search in one spot. Amy, it's kind of in conjunction. It's an overlay, and it's only on the patron side. Does that make sense?
So they're like, when they log into the patron catalog, it'll be Aspen Discovery they're logging into and not having to do one or the other. It'll be like the new skin. You know how we have Libby for our app now instead of Overdrive. This is our Libby for Pathfinder Central to make it more user-friendly, easier for people to discover elements of what's in our catalog, and you know, the online catalog, the digital collections, all the different elements can all be discoverable in one place.
One of the things that I also thought was cool is, so if I searched for Harry Potter, when you search in a catalog now, you get music and a Magic Eye book are the very ones up at the top. It is going to use something called Ferber, F-R-B-R, Ferber. And what it does is it organizes all the books together and all the music together and all of the movies together. And instead of having this huge list of things that you have to scroll through, it's just right there. It's very nice and it's very easy. I have patrons now who do not like how the last update was. And that is, it is $12,000 a year, Karen Wallace. I think our patrons are really gonna like it. I kind of wish it was on the staff side, but that's a entirely different interface. It doesn't, I think this is going to be one of those cases where librarians really need to be comfortable with the patron side as well as the staff side. But anyway, it was just a happy thing that I was going to share with you, just to let you know. Does anybody else have anything else? Everybody's looking tired.
I did have one question. This is Jessica. I had one question about when people started talking about the guards, the plastic separating the. So I already purchased some that I found, and now I'm like starting to wonder if I did the wrong thing, because everybody's talking about like covering the entire circulation desk. And what I got was what you see at Walmart, which is it just covers where you're, doing the majority of your work. Do you think that's still acceptable, or do I need to go with
Jessica, I think that what you did is what is recommended. There's no way you can put a physical barrier and completely separate staff from patrons. It's just not going to work in any library. It'll work in a bank, but it's not going to work in any of our libraries. I think that, and I also think that most of our budgets will really only allow for one guard in place. And so we're going to have tape on the floors, with arrows for patrons where to line up and how far apart to be from one another and things like that.
And Jessica, this is Patty. You have the most unique library, because even in a bigger library that like Salina has an up and a down, that makes sense. But your circulation desk is caught by a wall between and two doors picking a direction. So, for a while you may say that you're cutting off the children's side, and you actually put a piece of plastic there until you figure out what's going to work best. Or maybe it truly is half of this space is for return and half of the space is for checkout, and then you have a piece of blue tape across the middle of your counter. I mean, there's all kinds of things that roll into your play, and at the beginning you may choose to only use one side, so that other side is actually being reserved for you to put stuff that you don't know what to do with because it's still dirty, because either one of your counters are not very big, whereas like Plainville has this massively long counter with two little spaces, so you have a different problem. And it's like I said, if y'all just want to talk about it, just call one of us on the phone and we'll be glad to say, hey, this would make sense in your library.
And Jessica, when I think about your library, one checkout is going to work. Yeah. It's just a matter of, oh, come on over here and I can check you out over here, and stand on the tape and the next person up, kind of things like that. As Andy says, you just need to give you something that protects you from the patrons. You don't want a sealed room. And I fully anticipate that we'll be wearing masks as well. So our customer service skills, taking a breath and smiling, are really going to have to step up, because they're not going to see our mouths smiling. They're going to see it in our eyes in particular. So there's going to be that, but ideally they're going to be in masks as well. Pam from Claflin said something really important. She said, we're going to have to sharpen our PR skills. When the stay-at-home order is rescinded and things are open again, but we are phasing our opening, which she supports 1,000,000%, exclamation 3 times, our patrons will wonder why our doors aren't open to them right away. And that's right, Pam. That's what I'm going to come up with some PR releases and press releases and things like that, and we'll have them in a document, and those will be all available to you. And I'm essentially what I'm going to make for Great Bend, and what we're going to make for Great Bend, and we'll share those with you, and you'll be able to just pop in your library and put it into the newspaper or read it on the radio, or even just print it and put it on the door that kind of explains how we're doing this. I think that's going to be the thing that's the trickiest. It's not going to be cleaning or how we're going to check out. It's going to be how we're interacting with our public and how we're going to let them know where we are in this process. And I know the 5 faces that we're going to have trouble with at Great Bend are going to be very difficult when we say, no, you all can't sit in these same computers as before. You have to move to a different computer. And that's why this one has a pillowcase over it, or whatever we're going to do. That's where I think that if you're not watching customer service webinars now, I'm going to ask Patty to send out a list of several, because, and have you and your staff watch them if you have time for that, because that's where we're really going to have to step it up. We're going to have to learn new skills. And like I said, if we've got a mask, we've got to figure out a way to look open and friendly, and without drawing the smile on the mask, but there is always that option as well.
I noticed, so today was my fortnightly shopping trip and I go to the Sterling Dillon's because it's very small, and I had my mask on, and it was the first time I'd done the whole mask thing. And I still was smiling to everybody, and I think you can still tell when you have the general smile, you can still smile with your eyes. So I think it's still good practice to keep smiling and, say, how are you? Are you having a good day? I did notice I have to speak up a little bit more because you have the muffled, but it's very much a doable thing.
Yes. Yes, and people have been making masks, and they've been making them masks for kids, and Pam is right. It's for the benefits of everyone. Michael loves that Mary Beth used the word fortnightly. Of course I do as well. And Karen says, if the public can't follow the rules, the library can't offer the services. The public needs to be accountable. And here's what I think is most important, Gail saying, and they need to know ahead of time. When they walk in the doors, they need to know what they can expect. And that's why we're going to start a real big PR campaign, because that way people know it's not going to be like normal from day one. And Karen and Melissa in Hoisington wonder if we should ask patrons to wear masks. And I think, yes, we should. I just don't think that everybody's going to have access to them, and I don't think we're going to be able to supply them.
We can recommend.
We can recommend.
That's the word. That's the magic word, is recommend, because you cannot make them do it, because you've already heard these stirrings that have happened on the news where somebody said, I can't come in here if. A privately owned business can make those distinctions, but we are a public entity, so we can make those recommendations in the same as we're making the same recommendations that our state and our national governments are recommending.
I do have a comment here. This is Mary Beth. What about the concerns of patrons traveling from one town to the other to find the library that is open? How to stop spreading the germs from one to the library because they're trying to find, work the system and find the one that is fully open?
And you know what? I don't have an answer for that right now. People are going to game the system no matter what. We've got people here in Great Bend who somehow are figuring out how to get around this or that, and I'm sure you do in your community as well. That is just human nature. But what we can do is keep ourselves and our staff as safe as possible and make our environment as safe as possible for those in our community. And I guess that's what the really big conversation is. It's us wearing masks. If they've got them, have them wear masks. Tape on the floors, social distancing, and things like that. Amy says, if you smile while you talk, your eyes will too. And some people have been taking a picture of them smiling on their shirt or wearing a pin. Patty could make us all pins.
And the one thing that I found about the mask, because I did not know, and I've been wearing mine faithfully since it started, is I actually looked at myself in the mirror, and I actually had a conversation to see what you could see. It's just like story time with the puppet. Practice in the mirror, or talk to somebody at home if you have someone to have a conversation with. And as Mary Beth said, you have to speak up a little bit depending on the thickness of your mask. But if you nod your head, because in the grocery store, people are so kind and so generous, and, oh, let me get out of your way, or I'm sorry, excuse me. I mean, think about it. It's that Kansas nice. We still have that. We're just covering up a little bit. So think about it, and it really does make a difference. It's just really remarkable that the best of us can still come out if we allow it.
So we're talking in the chat about travel restrictions from county to county, and within the CKLS region right now there is no such thing. There is restriction from the east side, and if they are traveling to us, they need to self-quarantine for 14 days, things like that. But we don't have those now. I think we're just going to play it by ear. And you know what? When we talk about smiling behind your mask, we've forgotten to mention the most important part. is that what you all excel at, what you're exceptional at, is building those relationships, and a mask or a plexiglass or a sheet of plastic is not going to be as much of a physical barrier as we imagine it will be. What it will be is it's just a reminder that we need to be mindful of the health of ourselves and others, but it's not going to stop you all from building those really exceptional relationships and from you'll probably be doing better customer service than ever before, because you'll be aware of that physical limitation, and you'll be working to overcome that. Any more questions? Miss Patty?
I just want to take just a moment to talk about the census. Just a reminder that just because we're not in our library, it didn't go away. Joy is helping me get some information out to all of you, but just that reminder of how vital that census is. I know a couple of libraries have requested some information from CKLS in the last couple of weeks, but you know, it's all of those aspects that we don't give credit for the census doing for us. And in our towns of 80 people or 80,000, emergency services, exactly how much money is actually landing in emergency services is depending on the size of your town. Healthcare, your children's state health insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, you have so many aspects that are in play right now. And then of course we have education, your kids' school lunch program. All of those are parts of that census number. I know we're not there, and I know we're not running into our patrons every day in the grocery because we're not there either. But take a moment, think about how you as the librarian or as library staff can get that word out. And have you done your census? Have you told your mother or helped her do it? Because I had to help my mom do hers. And what Joy is going to be sending out is by county where the counties have self-reported so far. And basically they're looking to get that number in the 60 and 70% to avoid having to have everyone mail their census in. We know that some of your library patrons do not have access to a device or access at home to be able to do it online. Please leave your Wi-Fi on, because if they have a device, there's that opportunity. But also remind them they can use the telephone or they can send in their census form by mail. So they're not stuck out. It's just the federal government was hoping for more online reporting because they thought we were finally there, and we were. You know, we just had this little bump in the road, but we're going to be able to do it. So think about the ways that you can reach out to your community and help make those numbers count.
I have an addendum to census data. And so the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which is a federal agency that trickles money down to state libraries. In Kansas, it's used to purchase databases, things like that, subsidize the courier. The IMLS just released millions of dollars out to state library agencies based on population. So there's another reason. I mean, it's important for us in our work that we get our patrons to our community to fill out that census. One of the things before we go that I want to ask everybody is, based on that information that money that was just released from the IMLS, and that is so that libraries can connect. Some of you are on your children's devices or on your children's computers. Some of you don't have internet at home. Some of you are in your libraries. We're going to send out some questions very soon, and it's real important that you go ahead and fill those out. The state librarian is looking at using that money to be able to make sure that there's a laptop in every library. It may be a MiFi, things like that. And so I really encourage you to respond to that when you get those questions, and we'll see what we can do. That's right now to me is the biggest barrier is the connectivity, and it's not just for our librarians, it's also for our communities as well. Last chance, last call. I'm gonna look at everybody's face again. So Steve, does your mask make the Darth Vader noises? No. Oh, too bad.
All right. I did record this session. It takes about an hour for it to upload from my home connection. So I will be posting it tomorrow with the links that we talked about, the pandemic plan, phased opening. I think I'll also share our notes from Aspen Discovery because it kind of really breaks it down and talks about how those elements would be really useful. And if I can think of anything else, I might even put the link to the mask tutorial that I put in the chat there for you. So we'll have that recorded. I do see one last question. If when you find cleaning supplies and gloves, will detailed instructions come with them, like proper glove usage?
Yes, of course.
We'll try to make it as easy for you as we can.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because some of you are not the people that are doing the cleaning.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, we'll get bleach out there and we'll deliver it to you.
Okay.
When I scrolled through and I looked at everybody's faces, everybody looks really tired. And what's going on right now is very wearying to the mind and the soul. I want to remind you to do things for yourself. Take really good care of yourself. We're in it for the marathon, the long distance, and not the sprint. Pace yourself. If you need somebody to talk to, call one of the CKLS people. We'd be glad to talk to you. We've been doing a lot of work that wouldn't be considered library work, but right now it's just really important. And we care about you and we want to do everything we can to help you. If you can think of anything that we're not coming up with, for heaven's sakes, please let us know, because we want to be responsive to you, and we're not even sure what that looks like right now. Oh, Linda Scott from Lebanon wrote something nice. She sent it to me privately, but I'm going to say it. She printed out the poster that I sent out the other day, and she has it in her home office. Thanks for thinking of us. And it's, yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for thinking about us. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.